If God exists, of the Judeo-Christian sort at least, then there's nothing incoherent or contradictory about acknowledging the existence of spiritual entities and powers. If God is real, then the statement Satan, demons, ghosts, and magic are real is actually quite reasonable. Imagine a world where ancient secrets whisper promises of power, justice, and happiness, where crystals pulse with mystic energy, where the veil between the physical world and the spiritual world are razor thin. This is the world of occultism, where hope, wisdom, and power are sought through mystical, supernatural, and magical practices beyond normal human understanding. Now, it sounds intriguing, exhilarating, alluring, maybe even life-changing. But what is it about occult practices that appear so alluring in this generation? In this session, I'm going to trace what is meant by the term the occult, and then take us through some examples of occult practices, why they draw people in, why they should be taken seriously, and whether or not they live up to their promises. Now, what is the occult? The word occult comes from the Latin word occultus, which means concealed, hidden, or secret. Therefore, when you think of occultism, you should think of the study and exploration of concealed, hidden, or secret knowledge, particularly as it relates to magic or supernatural phenomena. And occultism, in a variety of forms, claims that people can gain this hidden or secret knowledge and power by performing certain magical or spiritual rituals that are warned against by religions like Christianity, seances, Ouija boards, using crystals, tarot card readings, and so forth. Okay, so what is hidden or secret knowledge? And the answer to that depends on who you talk to. Occultism is extremely diverse in its beliefs and practices, but it often consists of insights into the supernatural realm, tapping into supernatural forces, foreseeing the future, magical powers, alternative interpretations of reality, exploring the mysteries of existence, achieving personal enlightenment, achieving personal goals. You could think here manifesting, cursing, and so on. When someone refers to the occult, it is often used as a blanket term and not specific to any one set of beliefs or practices. So the phrase the occult is a catch-all phrase and can refer to alchemy, astrology, divination, Hermeticism, Kabbalah, magic like black or ceremonial or chaos, necromancy, neo-paganism, Santeria, Satanism, sorcery, spiritualism, thelema, and witchcraft. Now, according to Springtide Research Institute, each of these sets of beliefs are unbundled faiths, meaning they're highly customizable. And this is tremendously appealing to a generation that prizes the opportunity to pick and choose from a range of beliefs to collate their own individual spirituality. Take Satanism, for example. Most people assume that this refers to people who purely worship Satan. But it's much more nuanced than that. In fact, some Satanists are atheists, meaning they don't believe in God or a literal Satan. And some Satanists are theists, so they believe in both God and Satan and possibly other gods and goddesses. Some Satanists are atheists, which mean that they believe they are God. And still, some Satanists are Setianists, which is a form of Satanism centered on the Egyptian god Set and self-empowerment. Why this unbundled nature? Well, there are several factors at play rooted in broader cultural and historical shifts, particularly in the West. One significant factor is the rise of individualism, the belief in the importance of individual autonomy and self-expression over collective or institutional authority. This trend, which began to take shape during the Renaissance and Reformation periods, marked a departure from the more rigid collective structure of the medieval world. It emphasized personal freedom, autonomy, and individual interpretation. This was further accelerated during the Enlightenment, which promoted critical thinking, skepticism of authority, and the pursuit of personal truth. Here we can't neglect the influential figures in occultist thought, who have also shaped the unbundled nature of occultism in the contemporary world. One such example is Aleister Crowley. Crowley, 1875 to 1947, was an influential English occultist, writer, ceremonial magician, best known for founding the religious philosophy of Thelema, which emphasized individual will and personal freedom. And his famous dictum was, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." At first glance, this may seem quite profound, a call to radical personal freedom, resonating with much of our culture's individualistic values and predilections. But in my view, it's merely a distorted rewording of a much older, much more influential figure, the great African theologian Saint Augustine of Hippo, who said, "Love God and do whatever you please." Notice what Crowley did there. He presented a spirituality that reflects the autonomy and individuality of Augustine, but amputated God from the equation. By contrast, Augustine's wisdom emphasizes that true freedom and fulfillment comes not from unchecked autonomy, but aligning one's will with the Creator. Crowley's philosophy removes the transcendent anchor, reducing spirituality to self-will be done, rather than thy will be done. And you can see the difference for yourself. Your spirituality is self-defined and individualistic. Take control over your own life and destiny. Define your own identity. Empower yourself. You are accountable only to yourself. Create your own moral code and rules for living. And by contrast, faith systems like Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and so on come as a bundle, meaning a collection of beliefs that you have to accept as an integrated package. For example, a Christian adheres to a specific faith bundle. God is Trinity. Jesus is God the Son. Jesus died on the cross. Jesus rose from the grave, and access to God is claimed to be exclusively through Jesus. In Christianity, your spirituality is defined by God and lived out in community. You surrender control of your life to a loving God. Deny self and find identity in God. God delights in empowering you. You are accountable to God. Freedom is offered in God's moral code and way of life. What are people looking for here? Over the past 10 years, human imagination has been undergoing a re-enchantment, a renaissance of spirituality and wellness. And this is particularly evident amongst younger generations who are navigating this revival in our digital world. Yes, atheism is still present amongst the masses, but the new atheist movement, once led by former giants of debate like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Bennett, and the late Christopher Hitchens, isn't what it once was. Recent work by authors like Alistair McGrath, Dennis Alexander, Justin Briley, and others map this change. I often find myself speaking in secular spaces to both youth and adult audiences, and I can verify this shift is consistent with my experience. Believe it or not, I rarely come across Dawkins like new atheism these days. However, this decline does not necessarily signal a resurgence of Christianity. Instead, what I and many others have observed is a resurgence of what Christians might term alternative spiritualities, which often includes occult beliefs and practices. This isn't a trivial trend. It's rapidly gaining momentum and adherence. From a sociological perspective, spiritualities like shamanism that believes that everything is alive, has a spirit, and is joined with the earth are amongst the fastest growing religious movements according to a 2022 census. According to Jonathan Horwitz, who runs the Scandinavian Center for Shamanic Studies, people are now freer to explore their spirituality. There is a big movement to put the soul back into our lives. Economically, the spirituality and wellness industry now amounts to a staggering $3.7 trillion globally, fueling what some have aptly named the joy economy, a burgeoning market that thrives on fostering positivity, connection, and holistic well-being. And from a pop culture perspective, #WitchTalk on TikTok has 6.9 million posts with billions of views. On streaming platforms like Netflix, series such as Wednesday enjoy an enormous fan base, showcasing a narrative where witchcraft is openly practiced, celebrated, and normalized. Celebrities like Vanessa Hudgens from High School Musical openly share their experiences with the paranormal, claiming to see ghosts regularly and even performing acts of necromancy, which is communicating with the dead, in a graveyard with a spirit box. Celebrities like Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox openly embrace occult practices, from wearing each other's blood around their necks to performing blood oaths or blood bonding rituals. And this is where they drink each other's blood for a deeper connection. In fact, researchers like Springtide Research Institute have documented that the rise in occult practices are so high that 51% of 13 to 25-year-olds engage in it at some level: tarot card readings, fortune telling, and so on. Not too long ago, I was at a local youth group, and after the Bible talk, I was helping to facilitate the small group discussion on John chapter 10. And we came to this line, "The thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come to give you life and life to the full." Now here is what was utterly fascinating. In this text, Jesus assumes the existence of Satan, who he calls the thief. To my utter surprise, no one in the small group discussion questioned Satan's existence, not a soul. Even when I asked, how strange is it that Jesus speaks of Satan as a real person, this didn't strike anyone as unbelievable. Not that long ago, one would have to defend a claim like that against our Western, materialistic, secular epistemology that influenced our thinking, namely that nothing non-material exists. But here it was, accepted to be true as the discussion rolled on. Equally fascinating was some of the conversation afterward. A young man came up to me and asked, "Is it sinful to wear crystals?" I was taken aback, to be honest with you. I'd never thought about that before. Sure, I knew that some people wore them because there's an aesthetic appeal or because they believe it helps in some way, but I never ever took it that seriously. I quickly grabbed the small group before they dispersed and asked, "Who has friends at school that wear crystals?" And well over 80% raised their hands. So, my mind was open to the pervasiveness of the occult, that is putting trust in mystical, supernatural, magical practices for the offer of hope, wisdom, and empowerment. Now, to be clear, from the Christian worldview perspective, Satan, demons, ghosts, and magic are real. Let me be more precise and clarify a few things about that statement. This doesn't mean Christians need to fear Satan, demons, ghosts, and magic. This doesn't mean every story about them is credible or true. But this does mean that at least some of them are, in fact, credible and true. So why should I take occult beliefs seriously, you might be thinking? I think there are 3 reasons in particular, though there are surely more. First, if you hold that atheism is true, that God does not exist, then you're faced with the task of providing a reasonable explanation for the vast number of accounts spanning history and cultures of individuals who have reported experiencing supernatural phenomena. By that I mean experiences that are credibly reported and at least appear to have non-naturalistic or non-physical causes. It seems to me that there is far too much smoke to simply dismiss the possibility of fire. Second, if God exists, of the Judeo-Christian sort at least, then there's nothing incoherent or contradictory about acknowledging the existence of spiritual entities and powers. If God is real, then the statement Satan, demons, ghosts, and magic are real is actually quite reasonable. Third, the Christian worldview holds that the Bible is both true and the authoritative foundation of its beliefs. The Bible acknowledges the existence of Satan, demons, ghosts, and magic. Therefore, for Christians, the only logically consistent position is to affirm that these entities actually exist. So, why are people turning to the occult? That is an infinitely complex question. Some may dismiss it as rebellion or fantasy, and while that might be the case for some, it's a reductionistic view in my estimation. The allure of occult beliefs and practices goes much deeper. Here are 7 key reasons for this. Number 1, longing for healing from deep hurt. Many who join the occult have heartbreaking stories of trauma, abuse, and church hurt. Number 2, longing to regain control. In a world where so much feels out of control, school, work, home, friendship, finances, global events, relationships, the occult promises a way to regain control. Number 3, longing for justice. Many witches on TikTok promote spells to hex those who have hurt you. It's presented as a way to get justice when you feel powerless. Number 4, longing for guidance. In a world of uncertainty, the occult offers guidance through practices like tarot card readings and astrology. Number 5, longing for trust. It is so difficult to find people and institutions to trust these days. And as trust in traditional authorities erode, the occult presents itself as a reliable source of truth. Number 6, longing for community. Loneliness is an epidemic. The occult promises a solution, offering a sense of belonging in covens and spiritual communities. Number 7, longing for something more. Many people long for something beyond the physical world. The occult promises to satisfy this longing through contact with spiritual forces. So here's the issue according to distinguished scholar Charles Taylor. Western materialistic secularism, so the worldview that claims that God, the sacred, and the supernatural do not exist, has left many of us with an existential void in our lives. And here we cannot forget that nature abhors a vacuum. Therefore, something must fill it. Occult practices become attractive because of the promises that they will bring existential and spiritual fulfillment. But does the occult live up to its promises? In Charles D. Fraun's book, The Rise of the Occult, where many case studies are documented, those who turn to occultism in search of healing, justice, trust, or something more ultimately find themselves even more hurt, consumed by revenge, betrayed by broken trust, and discovering that the something more they invited into their lives is not peaceful or good, but haunting and evil. Fraun's interviews are quite intense when diabolical retribution is the subject of discussion. By that he means the spiritual attacks that some occultists experience when trying to leave the occult. Here are some examples. When Christopher decided to leave the occult, a 6-foot-long stick crashed through the back window of his car and stopped at the headrest of the driver's seat the next morning. The incident was captured on camera by his home surveillance system. He said, "If I had been in the seat, it would have impaled me." Another example, Andrew experienced extreme psychological disturbances and began acting out of character until intervention from his church. Another example, Philomena, suffered from mysterious illnesses and acute disturbances at night, where she would wake up and see things or suffer from terrifying dreams from which she awoke disturbed. Lastly, Dr. Gallagher, a mental health professional, recounts how one of his patients, Steve, was perfectly healthy before entering the occult. But his involvement and attempted exit from the occult resulted in experiencing visions of spirits and other paranormal images. Dr. Gallagher reported that Stephen's visions turned hostile and violent and often struck Steve on the head. Now, can you chalk this up to coincidence? Possibly. However, when there are scores and scores of stories of a similar nature, credibly reported, well documented by people who lack motivation to fabricate such stories, then one begins to wonder again, does this smoke mean the possibility of fire? Certainly, some stories are fabrications, but equally, it seems like a stretch to conclude that all of them are fabrications. And if that's the case, that some of them are legitimate, then it casts serious doubt on the claim that the occult delivers on its promises. But more than that, it appears that these beliefs and practices have the potential of being extremely dangerous. Moreover, as we reasoned earlier, if Christianity is true, then we do have good reason to believe at least some of these stories are indeed true. Satan, demons, angels, magic, and the like exist if God exists. And if that's true, nothing can rid you of demonic oppression or possession but the name and person of Jesus Christ. As Philippians 2, verses 9 through 11 reads, "Therefore God exalted him, Jesus, to the highest place and gave him, Jesus, the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father." In fact, Jesus warned that Satan is not going to be your friend or help you manifest something or tell you the future. Jesus Christ taught Satan has one plan for your life: to, quote, steal, kill, and destroy, John 10:10. But Jesus came that you might have life and have it to the full. Further, the reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the works of the devil. Satan will harm, Satan will lie, Satan will haunt. But the good news of Christianity is that Christ will heal. Christ is truth. Christ is love. Earlier, we talked about the 7 longings that draw people to the occult. longing for healing from deep hurt, to regain control, for guidance, for trust, for justice, for community, and for something more. These longings, according to the Christian worldview, are good, true, and beautiful. If you've ever read the book or watched the movie The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by Oxford scholar C.S. Lewis, then you remember how the Christ figure Aslan speaks to these longings and how he can satisfy them in a deeper way. To Susan and Lucy, two of the protagonists, he says, "Though the witch knew the deep magic, there is a magic deeper still, which she did not know. Her knowledge goes back only to the dawn of time. But if she could have looked a little further back into the stillness and the darkness before time dawned, she would have read there a different incantation. She would have known that when a willing victim who had committed no treachery was killed in a traitor's stead, the table would crack and death itself would start working backward." Can occult beliefs and practices superficially and immediately meet some of those longings? Sure. But only the depth and the truth of the gospel, the deeper magic, can perfectly and completely satisfy. Its magic is deeper and infinitely more powerful and will not harm you. Are you someone who is hurting? Jesus is the great physician. He came to bind up the brokenhearted. Do you feel like life is out of control? Jesus is the calm in the storm. Are you longing for guidance? Jesus is the wonderful counselor. Are you longing for trust? Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Are you longing for justice? Jesus is the King of justice. Are you longing for community? Jesus promises to never leave you nor forsake you and provides you with a new family, the church. Are you longing for something more? Jesus is God Almighty, who gave his life for you out of love, was raised 3 days later, demonstrating that death is not final, but a whole new eternal world of joy awaits those who desire a relationship with him. As we've explored, the allure of the occult often promises control, justice, and deep connection in a world that feels out of balance. However, while these practices may seem to offer quick solutions, they often fail to deliver lasting fulfillment. Ultimately, it's worth asking whether the deeper longings of our souls need satisfaction for something greater, something rooted not in hidden knowledge, but in truth and love offered by Jesus Christ, who promises life in all its fullness.
Hey guys, how are you doing? My name's Nathaniel and I'm part of the Occult team, and I just wanted to say a big thank you for watching this film we made. At Occult, we really love to speak about the big questions of our time and to show how the Christian faith provides credible and valuable answers. If you've enjoyed this film, check out the other stuff on our channel, and also please consider subscribing and following us. It really helps to make more films like this. We also want to hear from you, so if you have any ideas for new content, please put them in the comments below or get in touch with us directly. Thanks goes out to all the speakers, donors, and film team, of which I'm a part of. And actually, fun fact, it takes around 60 hours to make all of these films. And that's because we want to make sure the content is incredibly well researched, it looks and it flows beautifully, and ultimately, that it's actually useful to you. So this means a lot of research, listening to our audience, and filmmaking. Our incredible staff at Occult who make these films are funded by donations. So if you want to partner with us with our work, please also consider donating, which is really easy on our website. See you next time.